Yeah, I know Wilkins Coffee. Anyways, you know what? Coke.
This is carbonated brown sugar water,
Hmm.
and this is Coca-Cola.
What's the
To an
difference?
impartial observer, these two products may seem identical, but in the world of business, this little red can makes all the difference.
Oh.
It's a
Ooh.
name so gargantuan that even
Merry
mentioning it
Christmas.
feels redundant. Their logo is about as recognizable as the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Wow.
Across the history of human
Powerful.
commerce, no other company even comes close to their longevity and scope. Their product is available in
Wow.
so many markets that it's far easier to list the places that don't sell it.
Cuba and
The
North
Coke
Korea.
Empire
Cuba and North Korea are the two countries that have withstood capitalism.
has penetrated all corners of the earth, and even a little bit beyond that. They are
Ooh.
the envy of the business world, architects of the single most valuable brand that society has ever known. When running a company, it's easy to believe that branding is everything. Take away this red and
Ooh.
white label, and what exactly do you have left?
Diet
It's
Coke, I
tempting to
guess.
consider whether you could sell someone
Didn't
anything
Coca-Cola
as
change
long as
Santa
it's
into how
behind
he
those
is
same
today or something?
familiar
I
colors they know
think.
and love.
I
40
think.
years ago,
I don't
Coca-Cola was
know. I
thinking
don't
the
know the
very
whole
same
story about
thing
that one.
and nearly paid the ultimate price. In my last video, I talked about Mac
All
Tonight, the most
night.
successful ad campaign that McDonald's ever ran.
Mac
The
tonight. It's
character was the
Moon
spiritual
Man.
successor to Mac's Headroom, a memorable mascot for Coca-Cola which showed up on television
The
around the
original
same time.
VTuber. There he
Mac's
is.
Headroom was truly a
There
bizarre
he is.
character, but even more bizarre were the series of events which led to his adoption.
Hmm.
It's the 1980s, and
It's the
Coca-Cola is
80s.
quickly approaching its
And it's
100th
time for
year as a
clacks.
business.
It's
The
Rap
company
God.
brass aren't celebrating, however, as for the first time that nearly anyone can remember, Coke is in danger of losing its title as America's favorite
Uh-oh.
soft drink. Bitter rival Pepsi Cola has spent the past several decades slowly chipping away at Coke's dominant market share of the beverage industry. By 1985, Pepsi was on the verge of the unthinkable, overtaking
How?
Coke as the leading cola brand. The consumer market on which Coke had built their empire was rapidly changing. The health risks of soda were starting to be
Look here,
scrutinized,
listen!
and aging customers had begun switching to low-calorie options like diet colas. This
Tab.
demographic shift meant that future sales of Coke's flagship product would have to rely on the younger generation.
Hey, that looks like a bottle. Even this looks like a bottle. Cool.
A generation who tended to prefer Pepsi.
The
By the
Pepsi
80s, Pepsi had already
generation.
started outselling Coke in supermarkets, with Coke hanging on to the overall lead through restaurants and vending machines. If the market trends
Whoa.
continued, that lead wouldn't last much longer. However, as the old masters of the industry, Coke wasn't going down without a fight. That fight would come from their new chairman, Roberto Goizueta.
Ah.
Although he took over the company reins at a very troublesome time, the Cuban-born magnate was no stranger to trouble.
And yet he
In the
couldn't bring
1950s,
Coke to
shortly after
Cuba.
getting promoted to head of Coke's Havana bottling plant, Goizueta defected to the United States in the wake of Fidel Castro's communist revolution.
Oh
Over the
boy.
next 30 years,
Oh
he
no.
methodically worked his way up the company ladder until 1980, when he was finally promoted to the most influential seat in the beverage industry.
Ooh.
Mr. Goizueta had quite the origin story, but a necessary one for understanding his mentality towards change.
Change.
For decades, Coca-Cola had marketed their product on tradition and permanence. They had
Wow.
built a mythical
Nice.
aura around their elusive
Aura.
secret formula, the
I
very
heard aura.
backbone of the company's monumental success. The formula's lineage could be traced all the way back to its inventor, John Pemberton, who then sold it to company founder Asa Candler. Within a decade, the Coke formula was selling in every American state, becoming the eminent
Wow.
national beverage by the turn of the
Satisfies the
20th
thirsty
century.
and helps the
Not long
weary.
afterward, company president Robert Woodruff would extend the taste of Coke to the rest of the world, ushering in
Nice.
the most dominant period in company history. By 1948, Coke controlled an
Feed the
estimated
world.
60% market share of the beverage industry, distributing their
Hot
iconic
diggity
product on a
damn.
global scale. Millions of customers across hundreds of countries, all enjoying the same formula that had remained
It's
virtually
the real
unchanged for
thing.
nearly a century. It was Coca-Cola's golden goose, the real thing.
The golden
Altering it would
goose.
be like rewriting the Bible. And that's how the company thought, until Roberto Goizueta became chairman.
Uh-oh.
By 1984, the company's mighty 60% market share had shrunk to just over 20%.
It became
Decades of
Pac-Man.
complacency had allowed Coke's competition to get back in the race, and
Look at all
Goizueta
those
was poised to
drinks.
put a stop to it. After becoming chairman, he boldly announced that there would be no more sacred cows.
No more sacred cows.
In the next few years, he followed through on that claim by introducing two landmark products, Diet Coke and Cherry Coke.
Ooh, I like Cherry Coke.
The company had debuted any new product under the
Cherry Vanilla Coke, though,
While
is
both options
especially
proved
good.
To be quite popular, they only sought to further compete with the company's flagship product, which was still losing ground to Pepsi. Carrying the pride of one of America's most revered institutions, Coke was left with no choice. In a time of Cold War tensions, Roberto Goizueta had to resort to the nuclear option.
The nuclear option? It's gotta be Pepsi. There we go, the Pepsi challenge. Oh shit, son.
Market share was an ad campaign known as the Pepsi Challenge, a blind taste test between the two colas that appeared to show an overall preference for the sweeter flavor of
Dr.
Pepsi.
Pepper is king, though.
While not
This is
exactly
real and
scientific,
true.
the campaign
Real and
was
true.
undoubtedly successful at persuading many consumers to switch to the blue brand. This led Coke to conclude that the only way to stop Pepsi was to beat them at their own game. It was then when Coke's senior executives commissioned a secret assignment known as Project Kansas. Where company scientists were tasked with concocting a superior formula. Soon enough, they had synthesized the
sugar,
flavor,
spice,
one that
everything
could
nice.
Beat both Pepsi and
This
the
would
original
be
Coke in a taste test. With a potential new juggernaut on their hands, the company
it will
was now
be
faced with a tough decision.
the best
They
drink
could release
ever.
the new drink as a standalone product and risk further diluting the already crowded Coke lineup. Or they could do the unthinkable and replace the cornerstone of their entire brand. Ultimately, the choice was up to Roberto Goizueta, who would look to his past for guidance. Years earlier, when he was in charge of Caribbean distribution, Goizueta had successfully boosted sales by slightly tweaking the Coke formula. He had already once committed the cardinal sin, but perhaps he saw it as a virtue. For Goizueta, the choice was clear. Coca-Cola, the product that he had sold
Adapt
for his entire
or
adult
die.
life, was on the way out. And so the Coca-Cola company was set to make the single ballsiest move in the entire history of their business, replacing the very thing from which they were named. As the story goes, shortly before the launch, Roberto Goizueta sought out the blessing of his predecessor, Robert Woodruff, the man who had built Coke into the behemoth that it was. No one knows for sure what Woodruff really thought about the decision, because he wouldn't live to see it happen. In March 1985, Coca-Cola's most legendary executive passed away at the age of 95. 1 month later, the company launched New Coke.
There it is, the new Coke. The new Coke. Also, a bit of a detour before I forget. Since it's the holiday season, now is the season for hot Dr. Pepper. That's right, hot Dr. Pepper season. Heck yeah. All right, let's keep going.
Simply stated, my friends, we have a new formula for Coke.
New Coke brand starts ad blitz.
Coca-Cola is altering its 99-year-old secret recipe.
99 years old, holy smokes.
New Coke was rolled out nationwide. Over the next 2 weeks, the remaining supply of the original formula would be phased out of supermarkets and restaurants. The change was paired with an immediate new marketing campaign.
Just like the new Coke, it'll be around forever.
Initial sales of the product appeared promising. Early data from select markets were in line with projections. Roberto Goizueta confidently stood by his new product, Already touting his decision as a success.
This is a
The
success,
celebration
by
was
the
a
way.
tad premature,
Yeah,
however,
sure it
as
is.
trouble was brewing beneath Coke's triumphant hubris. Soon afterward, the company would find themselves struggling to stay afloat in a tidal wave of backlash,
Uh-oh.
one that spawned right in their own backyard.
Atlanta,
Across its
Georgia.
entire operational history, Coca-Cola has been headquartered in or near Atlanta, Georgia,
Hail
the
Atlanta.
heart of the American South. It's a part of the country which
The
prides
South.
itself on a distinct regional identity, one that often runs contrary to the rest of the U.S. For generations, many Southerners considered Coca-Cola as hallowed as barbecue and college football. It is their bona fide beverage of choice, so much so that to this very day, many Southerners still use the word Coke to refer to all soft drinks. For as long as they've been in
Wow.
business, Coca-Cola has relied
Birmingham?
on the South as a sales stronghold. The fierce brand
Hmm.
loyalty of the region may have led to complacency among Coke leadership, who developed an expectation that
Uh-oh.
Southern customers would welcome
Coke's
any
alright. Soda
change
you
with
drink
open
if you don't
arms.
have favorites.
Following the release of New
What the-
Coke, this assumption would be proven dead wrong. Shortly after the switch, the prevailing sentiment in the South was one
Uh-oh.
of abject betrayal. For many, it represented yet another pillar of Southern tradition that had been surrendered to the Yankees. Announcing the product smack dab in the middle of New
The
York
Yankee
City certainly didn't
cut.
help this perception. With the change, Coke had effectively alienated their most die-hard supporters.
Gotta wonder
Emotions
what the
among
originals
former
taste like
faithful
if
ranged from
we're drinking the
indignant to
new one.
irate. More than 40,000 letters of protest quickly piled up in Coca-Cola's office mailbox. The Coke hotline was
Damn.
inundated with thousands of distraught callers per day.
Holy shit.
A company hired
You
psychiatrists
never-
who listened in to some of the
never
messages,
fuck with
observed
sacred
some
cows.
customers acting as if they had lost a family member. Needless to say, the reaction was much more severe than what was anticipated. Questions
Sorry.
immediately loomed as to why the company didn't bother to run more tests in their home market. What little testing Coke did do in the South revealed a narrow preference for the new formula. Company
Narrow.
leadership saw this slight
Very
majority
narrow.
as justification for the change.
Oh,
What they
it's a
failed to consider,
it's
however,
vaguely
were the
majority.
10% of respondents who were vehemently against it.
Oh,
In a controlled survey,
violently
people can't
against
influence
it.
each other's opinions, but in the real world, it's not that simple. While most people were ambivalent about New Coke, those who disliked it really disliked it. This vocal minority would end up tarnishing the new formula in the eyes of the entire general public. Even if the average consumer didn't personally mind the switch, they likely knew someone who did. This common circumstance led to frequent cases where
Is
drinking
it
New Coke
really
could
that
potentially
deep?
place someone in an awkward
You'd be
social
surprised.
situation. For many, it
You'd
was
be
simply
surprised.
easier to avoid judgment and order something else. The influence of peer pressure would start to significantly impact sales, as consumers were now hesitant to embrace a product which so many found undesirable. All of a sudden,
boy.
Coke was facing a major problem, one
Boy.
that extended far beyond the South. People from all across the country were starting to get the impression that for the first time anyone could remember, a Coca-Cola product had missed the mark. New Coke
I
and the
mean-
swelling controversy behind it had become a national fascination. There's a saying in business that all publicity is good publicity, but for Coke's new
Yeah.
formula, it was simply not the case.
Is Coke nervous? Not at all.
Yeah. The whole that thing, no publicity. I mean, if any publicity is good publicity, try telling that to Twitter. Try telling that to Twitter.
Oh, well, we've never had more fun in our life. This wasn't a frivolous decision. It's something that we have worked on, John, over the last 4 years.
In the weeks after the debut, New Coke had become easy fodder for late-night comedians and bored journalists. The media kept reporting on eccentric stories about just how far certain people had gone to express their displeasure towards the switch.
Yeah, I read that joke.
There was the story of Dan Locke, an avid
Dan
Coke drinker
Locke.
from San Antonio, who was apparently so mortified by the New Coke announcement that he immediately went out and stockpiled 110 cases of the original formula.
Holy
Speaking of
shit.
stockpiles, a few quick-thinking opportunists would use the hysteria to their advantage. A Beverly Hills man named Dennis Overstreet bought 500 cases of the old formula for resale at his wine business. After 1 month,
Damn.
he had customers lining up around the block trying to scoop up the last of his supply. Overstreet sold them the old cases for more than double what he paid for them.
Fucking scalpers, even soda scalpers. Thus began soda scalpers. Man, I wish a change soda flavor was all we had to complain about. I worry for the kids that will never taste the succulent, delicious, refreshing taste of Halo 3 game fuel. Now that stuff is amazing. That stuff is amazing.
The newfound scarcity of the old formula led many to scour some of the most rural areas for
Damn.
the product. When America's domestic supply was completely exhausted, a few loyalists resorted to smuggling in the old formula from foreign countries who had not yet made the switch. Unfortunately, other forms of protest weren't so benign.
Mexican Coke's pretty
One
good
story
too.
out of Marietta, Georgia, featured a woman accosting a Coke delivery
Accosting.
man with an umbrella while shouting about how they had ruined the flavor. But by far,
Just
the
shoot,
king of
just
Coke
shoot the messenger, why
hostility
don't
was
you?
the Seattle man
Smuggling soda, yes. Smuggling soda.
by the name of Gay Mullins.
His name is
$100,000
Gay.
of his
Ha,
own money
funny.
to found a new organization for enemies of the new formula. Under Mullins' leadership, the old cola drinkers of America would declare war against New Coke. His
No
battle
New
tactics included
Coke.
selling anti-New Coke merchandise, spamming the hotline with complaints, and organizing mass protests which dumped gallons of New Coke into the local sewer.
Yeah, just drown all the fishes in New Coke. They probably mutated or something, but yeah. Coke.
At one point, Mullins even attempted to file a class action lawsuit against the soda giant, but it was quickly dismissed. The constant hijinks would attract a
The
ton of
truth is
media
stranger than
attention to the
fiction after
movement,
all.
helping to grow Mullins' army to as much as 100,000 strong. While acts of dissent were small in scope and petty in nature, their influence was tremendous. Together, these minor demonstrations effectively counteracted millions of dollars of Coca-Cola marketing. For as much as Coke tried to salvage the image of their new product, the American public was sticking to their own narrative. It was only a matter of time before everyone saw New Coke as the most despised beverage in the nation. To make matters even worse, New Coke had crossed the threshold where it was simply fun to hate. During a baseball game at Houston's Astrodome, the crowd in attendance would infamously erupt in boos anytime a New Coke ad flashed on the jumbotron.
Let me pay a company to waste their product. That'll teach them. You actually have no idea how effective that is. You actually know how effective that is.
Far exceeded just a few oddballs. It now resembled a full-fledged cultural event. Part of the morbid curiosity that attracted people to the controversy was tied
It's
up in
not
the
as
novelty.
stupid as, say, buying like $100 or $200 pair of Nikes and then only to them burning them, just giving them more money. Actually, no, it is just as stupid,
Of seeing such a powerful company
but somehow
struggle.
genius.
Coca-Cola
If they
was supposed to
memed
be
it
a shining
into,
example of American excellence.
that's
They almost
that's
never
the
slipped
thing.
up, so when they did, people made sure to let them know about it. Lots of people who didn't even necessarily care about the product found entertainment value in rallying against a Goliath corporation.
There you go. And that's why.
For many, New Coke became an issue of patriotism, with one Alabama reporter even insinuating that the whole idea was a communist plot to destroy a champion of American ingenuity.
Kinda real
This
and
theory
true,
wouldn't
though.
quite hold up after Fidel Castro, a longtime Coke drinker, published his own comments bashing the new formula.
Maybe that's the reason they stopped selling Coke in Cuba, because they changed the formula. Yeah, thanks, Robert Goizueta. You fucking ruined diplomacy between Cuba and the rest of the United States, you asshole.
Ironically, Castro had arguably set off this entire series of events in the first place by launching Roberto Goizueta on his journey to becoming the head of Coke. After watching his bold decision catastrophically backfire, Goizueta's ultimate humiliation would come from the words of his father, who told him that the
Oh
release of New
boy.
Coke was the only time he ever agreed with Castro.
Ooh, fuck. I'd kill
In the
myself
first
right
month
there.
after release, Coke's management
I would
remained committed to
unironically
their
end it all right
product
there.
and tried to weather the storm. But by the end of May, the situation
Any
was
sane
quickly
person would, to be
becoming
honest.
First, they said they were the real thing. Then they said they were it. Then kablooey, they changed.
And then they blew it.
Now, I'm gonna try my first Pepsi.
The company's strategy to poach business away from Pepsi was backfiring spectacularly. Shortly after New Coke hit store shelves, Pepsi saw a 14% sales increase, the biggest in their entire history. In
Dang.
mid-June, when soft drink sales typically rise, New Coke sales remained flat. Internally, Coca-Cola's
The
officials
Coke
were
was
starting to
flat.
panic. Amid complaints over the flavor of their new product, the company would quietly alter the formula yet again, this time adjusting its acidity. It was clear that Coke's leadership were losing faith in their vision. A few executives had already begun suggesting a return to the old formula. The last hope for New Coke was the product catching on in foreign markets. But after seeing the fiasco taking place in the US, Coke's international distributors wanted no part of it.
Yeah, no,
Domestically,
fuck
the
that shit.
company's
We don't
main
want
bottling
riots in the
partners were
streets.
on the brink of revolt. New Coke was now threatening to dismantle the very structure of their business. With no other options, the company swallowed their pride and submitted to the will of the people.
But one of us looked at the other and said, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
In the latest battle of the Cola Wars, Coke says it's bringing back its old formula.
Within the next several
Finally,
weeks,
Coke, old Coke is back. Don't fuck with tradition, especially American tradition.
They're both yours. The new taste of Coke and Coca-Cola Classic. Your right of choice is back.
Yeah, fuck that noise though. I want the Coca-Cola
announced
Classic.
The return of the original formula, ending the new Coke experiment after just 79 days.
Dang,
The new
only
formula would
roughly
continue
3
to be
months.
sold as simply Coke, taking a back seat to the rightful flagship product, now called Coca-Cola Classic. Following the controversy, longtime spokesman Bill Cosby would part ways with the company, claiming that promoting New Coke had hurt his credibility.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Yeah, let's go with that. It was New Coke's fault. It's totally not the other stuff he did.
This left Coke
Totally.
with a vacancy in their marketing department, which would soon be filled by the aforementioned Max Headroom.
And now here we are. The original
Despite a very
VTuber.
entertaining ad campaign, New Coke's reputation could not be salvaged. By the end of the 80s, its sales had dwindled to just a few % of the market before the company decided to shelve it. In 1992,
Darn.
they attempted to reintroduce the new formula as Coke 2, which
Coke
went about as well as
2.
you may have imagined. After a few years, the product would be mostly discontinued once more, only sticking around in a few select markets around the country. Roberto Goizueta, the mastermind behind it all, continued to swear by his creation. He personally drank the product until his death in 1997. Although he oversaw one of the biggest blunders in company history, his tenure was still considered a success. New Coke was expected to revive the Coca-Cola brand, and in a totally unorthodox way, it did just that, by making people realize just how much they enjoyed the original formula.
It's like that old saying, you don't know when you miss something until it's truly gone.
The return of Coke Classic led to nationwide euphoria. Sales figures not only rebounded, but went on to surpass what the brand had been doing prior to the switch.
Damn.
In just 6 months, Coca-Cola was selling more than twice as fast as Pepsi, solidifying their place as the top soda company in the world, a position they continue to hold to this day.
Keurig Dr.
Somehow,
Pepper
the
needs to
biggest
be
failure in
higher.
industry
We're the
history had
Dr. Pepper
directly contributed
generation.
to its biggest success. A story so perfect that it led many to wonder whether it was planned all along. The incident
Ooh.
sparked a variety of other Coke-spiracies as to the company's
Coke-spiracies,
true intentions
that's
with the new
something.
formula. Some speculated that the change was a response to the Reagan administration's war on drugs. with
Huh?
Coke having to phase out the last remnants of the coca plant from which they're named. Whether or not this was the case remains dubious, but a
Now
far
that's
more
the
likely
original formula I
explanation
want to
had do
try
with the
out.
company shifting from cane sugar to the far cheaper alternative of high fructose corn syrup.
Eat the corn
Strangely
syrup.
enough, Coke Classic wasn't exactly the same as Classic Coke. The returning formula had entirely switched to using corn syrup as a sweetener. Gay Mullins, who received the very first can of Coke Classic, reported feeling sick after drinking it. Many other astute consumers had their suspicions about the apparent bait and switch. But for the vast majority, it simply didn't matter. They had complained, and Coke had listened, which, at the end of the day, is all anyone really wanted. In 2009, Coca-Cola officially dropped the word classic from their packaging, effectively erasing the last trace of New Coke's existence.
Good
The company was
riddance.
surely eager to move on from such an embarrassing chapter of their history. Since then, the debacle has mostly faded away into a distant memory. I was born far too late to experience the summer of New Coke. The stories I heard felt like something of an urban legend. A forbidden elixir which caused so much heartache that
Forbidden
it was practically
elixir.
banned from public consumption.
Yeah, there's
An
a
artifact so unwanted that it became unobtainable.
that is such an interesting thing though. That is such an interesting thing though. Like how bad could it be really? Maybe I might like it personally.
I've spent the past month trying to study it, and after examining just about every aspect of the stuff, I was still missing one crucial detail. For as much research
How
I've
it
done,
tastes like.
the literature, the footage, and the data don't tell the full story. After dedicating so much effort trying to understand New Coke, the only thing left to do was taste it.
How do you drink
Oh.
that?
Because it's delicious.
What?
In 2019,
Stranger
New
Things.
Coke experienced a brief revival after being featured on the hit Netflix series Stranger Things. As part of a promotional stunt, Coca-Cola would release a limited run of the 1985 formula.
Ooh.
Only 500,000 cans were distributed, with a few winding up for resale on eBay.
And of course the
So
cola
I picked up a
scalpers.
case, and for the first time in my life, tried the flavor that whipped an entire nation into a frenzy. And to be perfectly honest, it was kind of hard to taste the difference. It's probably
Oh.
because I don't drink soda often or that I hadn't tasted a Coke in a while, but I could barely tell the two drinks apart. Funnily enough, even a guy like Gay Mullins, New Coke's most ardent critic, couldn't tell either. After finally experiencing the world's most infamous beverage for myself, I couldn't help but speculate about a pretty absurd thought. Does anyone actually know what Coca-Cola tastes like? It seems like such
How
a
can anyone
preposterous thing
tell the
to suspect,
difference? It's a
but
fucking soda,
research
my
tells
guy.
us that most people don't. Unlike what the marketing may tell you, independent taste tests have consistently shown that the average person can't tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi. For most of us, taste is just not our strong suit.
Guatemalan
Professor Joe
insanity
Lobo found that
pepper.
incremental adjustments to soft drink flavor tend to go unnoticed by consumers, meaning that New Coke could have theoretically succeeded had it been gradually consolidated with the old formula. This is especially interesting, since many people today believe that New Coke failed because it was a bad product. But in my personal assessment, that's simply not the case.
Don't say it.
In fact, after going back and really comparing the two drinks, I actually preferred the flavor of the new formula. It was
Sacrilege.
good enough to where I wouldn't mind seeing it return as a permanent option. The
Sacrilege.
product itself was fine, and had it been executed a little differently, it could have been just as successful as any other Coke flavor. The problem with New Coke had to do almost entirely with how it was presented to the public.
The
Coke
complete
may have envisioned the product
erasure.
as the ultimate answer to the Pepsi challenge, but they only ended up challenging themselves. The very idea of replacing the most legendary consumer product in history was just too brazen for the public to accept. New Coke was unknowingly pitted against 99 years of marketing genius, and in hindsight, it's unsurprising to see which side prevailed. At the end of the day, all the research, focus groups, and taste tests were irrelevant. New Coke never stood a chance for the simple reason that it wasn't the real thing. It wasn't Coca-Cola.
It
But
wasn't.
what is Coca-Cola really? Is it
Hmm.
carbonated sugar water? Is it 19th
What is
century
it?
headache tonic? I've got a feeling that for most people, Coke isn't even supposed to taste good. All it has to do is taste how they remember. There's something
Kind of
to
like
be said about a
McDonald's.
product that has lasted longer than virtually any other. One that persists, unchanging from generation to generation. It's the comforting assurance that no matter how different the world becomes, there will be at least one thing that stays the same. That is
Blade
the
Runner.
essence of the real thing. And
The
no matter
real
how good
thing.
new Coke tasted, it was no match for just how much that old formula meant to so many people. In consumer society, people don't have much. Decades of marketing have all but replaced sincere human interaction with a superficial facade of products. Take away those
Holy
products,
shit, all those
and you
cans.
erase the soul of modern man. When it was all said and done, Coca-Cola and the entire business world learned a valuable lesson. If you have a formula that's worked for almost a century, it's probably best to stick with it.
Yeah, don't fuck with tradition. I mean, look at America for the past few years. The fact that people spoke about New Coke as if a family member had died just goes to prove what kind of grasp some companies have again on us. Literally, it was like they stopped manufacturing water. As a former Coke executive once put it when asked about the theory that they failed New Coke on purpose so that Coca-Cola Classic could succeed. We're not that dumb and we're not that smart. That's awesome. What? Oh, yeah, here we go. This is crazy. The crazy thing is that the marketing is so ingrained in our culture that it has literally become color association. Early in the video, when you removed the Coke logo and made it gray, my mind instantly went to Diet Coke because that's how they do their branding. The fact that Bill Cosby left Coca-Cola because the company hurt his credibility is priceless. That's funny. Fun fact about Coke: in the Soviet Union, Coca-Cola was considered a symbol of American imperialism. When Dwight D. Eisenhower befriended Soviet General Georgy Zhukov during World War II, he introduced Zhukov to Coca-Cola and he loved it. In order to avoid being branded as a traitor, Zhukov requested a colorless Coke so he could disguise it as vodka. It was Crystal Pepsi, but 50 years early. Wow, that's awesome. Imagine if Coke never actually changed the recipe. They just named it New Coke as a social experiment to see what could happen. They're not that smart and they're not that stupid. Her slurm will taste foul, which is why we'll market it as New Slurm. And then when everyone hates it, we'll bring back Slurm Classic and make billions. I don't smoke. I don't chase other women. My only vice has been Coke. Now you've taken that pleasure away from me. Holy shit. That is fire writing. That is fire writing. Oh, here's another one. Here's another good comment. Reminds me of when they stopped making Twinkies in 2012 for a while. You remember one woman in the news crying just not just at the thought of her never eating a Twinkie again, but of her kids never getting the experience either. That is when I realized how strong the bonds of branding can truly be, and none of us are safe from it. But you know what? If they change the formula, that's effectively the same thing. Oh. Oh, from what you've heard, New Coke was better tasting when you just had a few sips, but it was much less enjoyable if you had multiple cans or a big bottle. Coke's biggest consumers were and are people who practically drink it instead of water. Imagine if they somehow changed the taste of all the water you drank and you couldn't stomach it anymore. You'd probably start protesting too. And finally, actually, no, not a finally, because I'll save this for later. You got a feeling that for most people, Coke isn't supposed to taste good. All it has to do is taste how they remember. They recently came to a similar epiphany when it came to your favorite fast food, In-N-Out Burger. Californian detected. When people who didn't grow up in the West Coast try it, they're often underwhelmed. Their burgers taste good, sure, but for people who swear by In-N-Out, I think it has more to do with the fact that a double-double purchased today tastes identical to the double-doubles they ate as children, whether it be 10 years ago or 50 years ago. You know what? That might actually explain the regional burger chain thing. Because there's a lot of Texans that swear by Whataburger, but if an outsider eats Whataburger, they say, this tastes like shit. Or this tastes like Jack in the Box or whatever. However, neither have tasted Culver's, so that's different. And finally, from Larry Bundy Jr. himself, I've had new Coke. If anyone wants to know exactly what it tastes like, get a can of Pepsi and a can of Coke and mix in 80% Pepsi, 20% Coke, and you have new Coke. Thank you, Larry Bundy Jr., for the recipe for new Coke. I'm going to try that out, and I'll report how it tastes.